Hello, I'm Martin Day. You're watching the Boar News YouTube channel. I'm here today with Mark Stevens, a candidate for the Green Party in the upcoming May local elections.
Hi, yes, so I'm Mark Stevens. I'm currently a Kenilworth Town Councillor, but on the 1st of May this year, I'll be standing as the candidate for the Green Party in Lapworth and West Kenilworth, which is a division of the county of Warwickshire, which incorporates the university.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Well, thank you for being here. If you'd just be able to, if we'd start by saying, what is the specific, and you may not know this off the top of your head, but which accommodations do you know perhaps are within the constituency you're standing for?
The accommodations, we've got Lakeside, Heron Bank, Pridefield, and Sherborne.
Excellent, thank you. And starting off, just as an initial question, what sort of ties perhaps to the university do you have already? People may have seen a lot in your newsletter, a lot of photos of you on campus and interacting a lot with students, but I was wondering if you wanted to elaborate at all on what kind of relation you have to students here already.
Sure. Well, I attend certain lectures sometimes, and from my background, you can see there's some David Bowie things. I went to a lecture recently related to David Bowie, specifically in his White Knight years from many years ago. But also I'm a very keen jazz fan, so I spend quite a bit of time on a Friday evening in the jazz sessions there, which I always find entertaining because you get the students coming up to talk to you as well at the same time. We can talk about lots of issues, not just the jazz side of things, which is great as a sort of a platform. So and also I have some friends who are studying there. So it's great to see those things in action. And of course, you experience, of course, as you visit, you see what's happening. And one of those particular areas which is a little bit frustrating for I know the students is the buses issue, which seems to stack up like crazy. And takes a while to disperse. So yeah.
Thank you. As our next thing as well, I mean, currently, I suppose the purpose of this interview would be to encourage students at Warwick to get involved with politics, and specifically local politics. Of course, currently at the time of recording, it's actually the spring break at Warwick, so there are very, very few students at work at all. They'll all be back before the local elections, of course. But as a question, why should students care about local politics? There can be a perception as well that local politics often isn't able to get many things done. How would you disagree perhaps with that statement, and why do you think students should get involved?
Well, I think because they spend an awful lot of time of their early lives at university, I think it's key that they actually have not only express their concerns about things that they don't think are working, but also actually get involved with trying to shape some of those things. And that's through a combination of working with candidates, like it's happening literally at this point in time. I thank Jacob and Will for their support in the local Green Society at the university as part of that campaigning program. But also, I think if you're going to spend a lot of time, which as a university, on the accommodation initially on site, but also beyond in the local area when you leave the campus for the actual second year and beyond, I think it's important that the environment you're going to live in and actually work in and travel around in is one that supports what you actually care about. And I think from a climate point of view, we're trying to improve active travel. That's important to us. So cycling and walking. We've got some areas of the patch that I'm standing for, which there are no footpaths. You take your life in your hands currently to actually walk down the road, which is crazy. And there's some other areas where the speeds are rather excessive, and nobody's dealing with those things. And I won't mention potholes, obvious on that one, but that's, as a cyclist, I can tell you that's really unpleasant to hit one at speed because you come straight back off. So I think it's important to play the part as much as you can in actually influencing some of those decisions at a county and at a town and currently at the district level as well. The world is changing in terms of local politics over the coming years with this movement towards unitary authorities. That's the intention with elected mayors and such. But thankfully, we still have the opportunity on the 1st of May this year to actually vote for candidates to actually shape that future. And I think reflecting on what's happened over the last 4 years since the last county elections, I think the incumbent for the Lapworth and West Kenilworth hasn't been in touch with the needs of the students. So I think it's fair to say they haven't seen any change, and they really do. They do need to see that.
No, definitely. Well, you touched a bit on it there, but as a Green, obviously, climate policy and legislation around the climate and environmental concepts, sorry, is absolutely going to be cornerstone to your platform. If you'd just be able to perhaps summarize into 3 or 4 like key points, I guess the main things you'd want to do around the climate if you were elected this May.
Well, I think the one of them is, as you say, I did touch on this. One of them is the active travel side of things, because we need more cycleways where we need cycleways which are actually joined up, not just ones in splendid isolation in patches. So I think it's important we actually develop some of those previously discussed sort of cycling paths across, and that's not just from the university or even beyond the university, from Birmingham all the way through to the Cotswolds, or potentially in time. But that at the moment it's very dysfunctional. I think it's disjointed in terms of where these things exist at the moment. I also want a service, and this is where my focus on buses, particularly for the students, is coming from. Is I want a service that actually is a service they value. It's one which actually meets their needs, and one which actually gives them the opportunity to actually avoid having to hit an Uber or get a taxi everywhere they go and such. I want them to have the opportunity to use public transport, because the more people that use the actual integrated services, the better from the carbon footprint point of view. We don't want thousands of different car travel plans when in fact we could have maybe 40 bus trips instead. So I think it's important that we actually work together on that. I think the other thing, of course, is from a climate point of view, is the air. The air we breathe, because yes, electric cars are gain traction, but they are going through a tricky period at the moment in terms of the emissions discussion, and whether in fact it's going to commit to getting rid of the combustion engines ultimately. But the important thing is to reduce that pollution source as much as possible, and actually use the ones where we can collectively travel without impact on others. So.
Very good. And probably another part of your platform this time around is public transport. You've talked about via your slogan, "Better
Yes.
Buses," I believe, and things like that.
Better on buses.
Yes, better on buses. Sorry. What is it though that if you were elected, you would actually be able to do to ideally, I suppose, fix the state of buses? Because obviously we can't nationalize the bus service, I suppose, just for the University of Warwick. So what is it that you would want to do specifically if you were elected?
Well, much as I have a lot of sympathy with nationalised buses generally, the reality is for the focus of Warwick University, I think there's a number of elements to this. One is actually having a service that meets the time frame which you need it to work, and that what I mean by that is I've had feedback from students saying that actually they cut off the service in the early hours of the morning too early. They'd like that extended by an hour. In other cases, it's literally, and let's be honest, Britain is full of a wonderful array of different weathers. If you're standing out there in all these in a rainstorm or something like that, because the bus shelters can't accommodate actually a reasonable number of people to actually allow people to stay dry while they're waiting for the bus, which, by the way, is often delayed or in some cases cancelled. And so we want to get away from that unreliability, I think, is part of it. But also, we want those things we want people to actually be encouraged to use them, and the more efficient something is, the better it works. The word gets around very quickly, as it does, of course, if it doesn't work well, and that's what we're hearing today. Today those things aren't working for us, and we want the thing to work for the students, to provide a real service, because service is about meeting the needs. So.
Another issue for students, tied in partly to the state of buses and public transport, would be the cost of living, which is been an issue for students for quite some time, and probably will be for the foreseeable future. What policies would you, as a councillor, a higher tier councillor, and a representative for a local area, would you want to try and push through to make just sort of everyday expenses for students a lot easier?
Well, I think going to university is expensive enough, full stop, these days. And we could have a conversation about value for money around that, I'm sure. But let's stay on the question. I would like to actually. They've obviously recently reduced. Well, about 12 months ago, they reduced the actual average cost of the bus trip. But then they recently, with the new government coming in, have lifted that again and increased it. Now, what I'd like to do is to return to what I consider to be real value for money trip, and which would actually be getting closer to where we started just over a year ago. Those sort of £2 sort of trips. And I'd also like, if that doesn't work and we can't make those other points I raised earlier about the overall service package, is to actually explore some other alternatives for maybe the students' transport to the key areas where people are visiting. So that's Coventry, it's Kenilworth, it's Leamington, it's Warwick. So is there an alternative that could actually deliver the service compared to what we have today, if the ones that we are working with today aren't able to support that change? So.
Thank you very much. Now, we've spoken across a range of student issues throughout this interview. Obviously, in large part, perhaps, the true ability to fix these issues will lie with perhaps national government rather than local government. Of course, with legislation passed in the last few weeks, there's perhaps a growing opinion, especially among students, that both of the two major parties essentially represent the same approach to politics and the same kind of ideology. Would you say that politics in this country is broken? Do students and do people have an actual choice when they do cast their vote?
Yeah, you're not alone, and nor is the student body alone in thinking that the sort of the blurred messaging between Labour and Conservatives is rather hard to differentiate to a great degree these days. I would agree with that. It's the Greens offer an alternative to that, but obviously to get to that level, we need to actually elevate and grow our, if you like, our power base, if you will, in the local government first. And we had great success last year. We got 4 MPs elected, which was fantastic. And we didn't pick the easy places to go after either. Some of our competitors went after a more strategically based approach, whereas we didn't. We went for some of the hardest ones to get, and we were successful, which is fantastic. We expected to get 4. We got all 4 of those. But as part of that, we elevated the interest in the Green Party across the rest of the country as well. So people were actually getting close calls on some of those results, even though they weren't elected at that time. But coming back to where we're focusing here, we've had in Kenilworth, we switched out all of the Conservatives with the election in 2023. So we know it's a Lib Dem and Green Party composition. The vast majority of those councillors are actually Green now, and the same in the district, where we have a coalition with Labour to actually work together to actually try and improve the district. That doesn't mean we agree with everything that Labour does. Far from it. But obviously we want to make sure that the vast majority of common areas or interests can actually be pursued and actually delivered. And then of course that brings us to the council, the county, and we have a relatively small presence in the county at the moment, and what we're trying to do is to actually get as many of those 57 divisions represented by a Green Party member as we can, because the only way we're going to change those things in that area is to actually do it from the inside out, which is why I'm standing, by the way. I've been lobbying from the outside through the town council to try and get action. Some of these are on child safety things. These are children being unsafe when they're going to school, things like that. Some of these are kind of knee-jerk instant recognitions of a problem. But we're getting responses like, well, nobody's died yet. Well, what? That's horrendous. When you're talking about child safety going to school. So, we've got to get these things fixed. So lobbying from the outside has had limited success. So the only way to change that is to get inside. and that's exactly why I'm standing for the county.
No, excellent. Sorry. As a final question, then perhaps, how can students, if people have been sufficiently inspired by over the course of this interview, how can students actually get involved with local politics? What are the steps that they can take to get involved?
Well, there's all sorts of things they can do, and obviously I'll speak from a Green Party perspective, obviously, but you know, there are the societies obviously out on campus and in the university. You know, you can they can connect with the through Instagram to the for example, is Mark Stevens HQ is one of my Instagram accounts, and then there's of course Warwick.Greens, which is another Instagram account, and that will actually get you into a lot more material specific to student life and specific to the campaign at the moment. And I think that's probably a good starting point. The other thing, of course, is most importantly, is register to vote. If you're not already registered, please make sure you're registered, because literally every vote will count. You know, we came a close second last time in terms of the last county elections, but a lot of people were disappointed they didn't get that green vote in there, and so you know, every single vote will make a difference to this election, and it's important that we actually we displace the people who are really what I call career politicians, instead of people who actually genuinely care and make a difference and make change happen. You know, and that's what I'm all about. So, you know, do that. Also, you can get involved with obviously reach out to Jacob and Will, you know, in the society, and they'll connect you with other folks in the group. You could join the Young Greens, for example, the organisation, and become a Young Green Party person. From you know, it gives you a great opening to get involved in the wider span of the local area in which you're actually going to be living for a large period of your time over the next few years. You know, let's try and make a difference. You know, and together we can make that difference. You know, I think it's important that you think on that collective level, because you know that's where real things change. You know, you need, but the other important thing is get your voice heard, because the best way to do that is to exercise your vote and do it with people who actually care. You know, I'm all about giving that voice to people and making sure that that voice is heard at whatever level is appropriate. You referred earlier to a lot of the things go up and down in terms of government levels. Well, it's important to get that voice heard at every level. And to me, you know, if you know, literally a vote for me is going to deal with that. You know, I'm about action, and I care genuinely about the community. You know, I have a passion for it. You know, I'm a trustee of a national children's charity, Kids Out. You know, I'm a Kenilworth Lion locally here, and of course I'm a town councillor. That's a volunteering position. Most people don't realise it's volunteering, but it is. You know, it's key to making a difference, working with people and having the confidence in people who care about the community, because the community is what counts. That's what makes your life better when you're actually a university in Warwickshire. You know, and it's a perfect catalyst for your life going forward in terms of change as well. So jump on board, or just reach out to me. I don't mind. You know, directly, please. You know, grab that HQ, Mark Stevens HQ, hit the Instagram account, and you know, tell me what you want to do. Tell me what you care about and how you want to get involved. You're very welcome to join the quest.
Thank you. And on that note, thank you very much for agreeing to do this interview. That was Mark Stevens, a candidate for the Green Party in the local elections for the University of Warwick on May the 2nd. So sorry, is it 1st or 2nd?
May 1st.
May the 1st. May the 1st this year. You can find other interviews with other candidates at a later date to now on our account. You can find links to Mark Stevens' various socials in the description below this video. And thank you very much for watching.
Thank you.